one of the most common instructional tools in sports psychology and coaching is the feedback sandwich. So essentially you start with a positive, then you fill in your negative or your criticism, and then you end with another positive statement. So if a player makes a mistake, let's say in the game, you might say, great effort, don't dribble the ball off your foot next time, but you're playing really hard. So you're giving a positive at the beginning, trying to get them to think positively. Then you're coming in with the criticism, and then ending it with another positive. And this is mentioned often in sports psychology, coaching literature, as the best way to give instruction or to give feedback, especially when that feedback is going to be or potentially perceived as negative. And it's something that I've long ignored, and that I really think that there are problems with this method, despite its prevalence in many sports psychology and coaching textbooks. And the problem that I see, and I saw an article about this weekend that kind of reaffirmed my feelings, is that once players understand the idea of the feedback sandwich, they ignore the positive. So that's the first problem. So as soon as you say something positive, they will ignore that and wait, because now they're accustomed to a positive is followed by a negative. So they hear a positive and they ignore it, and they immediately, now they're attentive and they're listening for the criticism. And so some coaches, who use this, if you ask their players, the players will say, the coach is negative. And in reality, 2 of every 3 comments they're making are positive. It's just that they've become so accustomed to this, this pattern, that they don't even hear the positive messages anymore. All they hear is the negative. The second way it can be, misused or, limited in its impact, is that because you end with a positive, the athlete might actually ignore the negative message. I've seen this happen less, but it's definitely possible that you say the positive, you give the feedback or the criticism, but then you end with the positive, and then, so the player feels good and they take away the positive message and they ignore what came before it. So now it might be a little bit better, because now they're feeling positive instead of feeling negative from the criticism, but now they haven't heard or understood or taken to heart the criticism or the critique or the feedback, which was the point of all the feedback in the first place. So 2 different ways why I think the sandwich feedback can be overused and in some ways inappropriate to use with players. Personally, if I need to give feedback, I give feedback. If I want to be positive, and reinforce a positive, or, just try to pick up a player after a mistake, then I do that. And I try not to combine the 2. And the big one to me is leaving out the word but. So if you start with a phrase, you played hard, but that's an immediate signal. Anything before that is ignored, and all they're going to listen to is the but. So if you are going to use this sandwich feedback, I encourage coaches to say and. So you played hard, and make sure that we're looking ahead on the dribble, and keep playing hard, keep doing well. You're doing a good job. Whatever. But you're linking the statements as ands. It's not a but. So no, they're not juxtaposed. It's not, well, you were playing well, but now you did this, so now it can be seen as, well, now you're not playing well because you did this wrong. So that's just my personal preference. Again, most of the textbooks will tell you that the sandwich feedback is the way to go. But from what I've seen in professional situations, high school, youth, I think it loses its purpose. It's probably okay to use every once in a while, but when it becomes a habit, and it becomes something that the coach uses almost on a daily or multiple times per day basis with players, I think the players learn, and they know what's happening, and they start to ignore those messages, and take away the negative from what should be a fairly positive if you're getting 2 positives for every negative. Probably with younger players, it's going to be a little bit more appropriate, a little bit more beneficial. With older players, more experienced players, probably less so. So I think, if you're coaching really young players, don't take my advice for it, but try it and see what kind of reaction, or how it changes behaviors for the players. My advice with older players is, just be honest with them. Hey, you made a mistake. This is what you need to do. Or hey, good effort. You're doing well. Whatever the situation dictates, whether it dictates, more instructive feedback or whether it dictates more positive reinforcement.